Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going on an investigation, a journey 2 million years into the past. We're on the trail of our earliest ancestors to solve one of the biggest mysteries out there. How in the world did they survive? Let's dig in.
You know, our world today feels like it's moving at the speed of light, right? But that's just a tiny, tiny blip in the grand scheme of things. For almost all of human history, life was completely different. So how did we make it? How did we survive for a staggering 99% of our existence without any of the things we rely on today? That is the puzzle we are cracking right now.
So, our first clue isn't about what stuff they had, it's all about how they lived. And the key to their survival wasn't about settling down and building things, it was about being constantly and very smartly on the move.
We call these early people hunter-gatherers, and honestly, that name tells you pretty much everything you need to know. Their entire life revolved around this strategy, hunting animals, fishing, and gathering this huge variety of wild fruits, roots, and nuts. Every single day was a search for food, guided by the seasons and the world around them.
And look, don't for a second think this was just some casual walk in the park. This was life on expert mode. It took an absolutely incredible set of skills. You had to have the knowledge of a botanist, the reflexes of an athlete, and the sharp instincts of a detective. You needed to know which plant would kill you and which would cure you, how to track animals that were way stronger and faster than you. This was a life of deep, deep expertise.
So you might be asking, why all the moving around? Was it just random wandering? No way. It was a brilliant, calculated strategy for survival. If you stay in one spot for too long, you use up all the food. Simple as that. Plus, the animals they relied on were always moving, so you had to follow them. Different plants ripened in different places at different times. And of course, the most basic need of all, water. Everyone, both human and animal, had to follow the water. This wasn't chaos. This was a living, breathing map for staying alive.
Okay, so if they're always on the move, what did they carry with them? How did they manage this lifestyle? Well, our next clue comes from the stuff they actually left behind for us to find, their prehistoric survival kit.
Archaeologists are pretty sure early people used tools made from all sorts of things. Stone, wood, bone. But think about it. Wood rots away. Bone eventually breaks down. But stone sticks around. For millions of years, these stone tools have been waiting in the dirt, and they've become the single most important piece of evidence we have about their daily lives. It's like their survival kit, perfectly preserved in time.
I mean, just look at this list. These tools were essential for literally everything. You can think of them as the original Swiss Army knife. One simple-looking piece of stone could be used to butcher an animal, chop up tough roots, scrape a hide to make clothing, or even carve a piece of wood into a spear. Absolutely ingenious.
So, how they actually make these amazing tools? Well, we know of two main techniques. The first is called stone on stone, and it's pretty much what it sounds like. You use one stone as a hammer to carefully chip away flakes from another stone, which is called the core. The second technique, pressure flaking, is a bit more advanced. Here, you use a piece of bone or another stone to apply very precise pressure, popping off small, super sharp flakes. Both of these methods show incredible planning and skill.
Okay, we've looked at their lifestyle, we've examined their tools. Now, let's go to the crime scene itself. Where did these early people actually set up camp, and why on earth did they choose those particular spots?
Now, in the world of archaeology, we have a special word for these places, sites. A site is basically anywhere we find the evidence, the tools they dropped, the bones from their meals, any trace that people once lived there. These sites are the treasure troves where we find our most important clues.
And what's cool is that these sites aren't all the same. They tell us different parts of the story. You have habitation sites, basically their homes. Then you find factory sites, which are like workshops, usually near a good source of stone where they made all their tools. And every once in a while, you hit the jackpot, a habitation come factory site, a place where people lived and worked, sometimes for a very long time.
So why choose a cave? I mean, when you think about it, it's the most practical reason in the world, protection. These spots were like ready-made houses, giving them shelter from the rain, the blistering heat, and the cold wind. In a prehistoric world, a good cave was prime real estate.
But here's something really important to remember. This story isn't static. The world these hunter-gatherers lived in was constantly changing, being reshaped by massive shifts in the environment and, you guessed it, by mind-blowing new technologies.
And maybe the biggest game changer of them all? Fire. So how do we know they used it? Well,
archaeologists have found cold, hard evidence, like the traces of ash they discovered deep inside the Kernol caves. That's the smoking gun, literally, proving our ancestors had tamed this incredible force of nature.
Seriously, learning to control fire changed everything. All of a sudden, you have light to push back the darkness, you have a way to cook meat, which makes it safer to eat and unlocks way more nutrients, and maybe most importantly, you have a weapon. For the first time, you could scare away the huge predators that hunted you. Fire didn't just warm them up, it fundamentally changed their place in the world.
This unbelievably long stretch of time actually has a name: the Paleolithic period. It's a big word, but it's actually pretty simple. It comes from two Greek words, paleo, which just means old, and lithos, which means stone. So it is, quite literally, the Old Stone Age, and it's named for those stone tools that were the key to everything.
Now, this timeline, this really helps you wrap your head around the insane amount of time we're talking about. The Paleolithic, the Old Stone Age, kicks off 2 million years ago and runs all the way up until just 12,000 years ago. Only then do we get into these much shorter periods, the Mesolithic and the Neolithic.
But, okay, get ready for this, because this is the number that just blows my mind every single time. That first period, the Paleolithic, it's not just a chapter in the human story. It pretty much is the human story. It covers 99% of our entire time on this planet. Everything else, writing, farming, cities, empires, the device you're watching this on, it's all crammed into the last 1%.
And, as the world started to change around 12,000 years ago, so did the tech. During that Mesolithic, or Middle Stone Age, the tools started getting smaller, more refined. We call them microliths. And these tiny stone blades were super versatile. They'd stick them onto handles of bone or wood to make more complex tools, like the first saws and sickles.
All right, for our final clue, we're going to look at something that goes way beyond just survival. This is something that gets personal. It's a clue that speaks to us directly from their hearts and minds, a true voice from the Stone Age.
Because, after all the scattered tools and leftover bones, the most incredible, the most human clues they left behind are these paintings hidden away on the dark walls of the caves they called home. Right here, for just a moment, we get to see the world through their eyes.
And we're not talking about simple stick figures here. These paintings of wild animals, as the experts tell us, were drawn with great accuracy and skill. It shows they had this incredibly deep knowledge of the animals they shared the world with, and just a stunning artistic talent.
Which brings us to our final question, the one that kind of hangs in the air when you look at these ancient images. What were they for? Was this a way to record a great hunt? Was it part of some spiritual ritual? Or were they just telling stories, the same way we do? So, I'll leave you with that. What stories do you think they were trying to tell?